Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney Plus.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
Gary the Snake.
And your last name?
The Snake.
Dream Team.
New habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home. Zootopia 2, now available on Disney Plus, rated PG. And right now you can get Disney Plus and Hulu for just $4.99 a month for 3 months with a special limited time offer. Ends March 24th. After 3 months, plan auto renews at $12.99 a month. Terms apply.
Welcome back to the Epic Universal Podcast. It is me, Jim Hill, and we're recording this in Vegas, baby. Eric and I are now on the 19th floor of the Luxor Hotel with a primo view of the Sphinx's butt. We're looking right out over the Las Vegas Strip, but we are in town to finally, the both of us experience. Neither of us have been to Universal Horror Unleashed,
right?
Which opened last year, August of 2025, and we went over there last night. We were there right at opening, and I want to say 2 hours.
Yeah, I think we got there about 3:30. Didn't get in until maybe 3:50. They let us in the line. We probably got in at 4 to actually experience it, and I think we left at 5:45, 5:55.
There we go.
Experienced pretty much everything.
Yeah. And more to the point, because both Eric and I have a very poor sense of direction. We saw a lot of Area 51, which I have to say I was really impressed by, weren't you?
Yeah. So, and this is a giant compound. It's off the Strip, and I remember talking to producer Dave, about it a while ago, and he's like, "Oh, you're going to Area 15. This is a really cool area over there. That's where they're building
Area 15."
Yeah,
right,
but it is all very alien based, right?
Yeah, it is.
And they had at the time when we walked there's a Barbie experience, which was a pop up shop.
Yeah.
There was like an alien craft, which we would call the Beacon. Like it was almost a little ride that you're going up and down. John Wick experience. Yep. Giant. It almost looked like giant show buildings, right?
No, absolutely.
Stages, you would say.
And again, I have to say, since Area 51 opened back, in fact, we were just talking about this. Those poor bastards. They opened. This opened in Vegas in September of 2020, right in the teeth of the pandemic.
Right. And it's a highly immersive area. We walked through one of the main show buildings, and there is literally a shop. Yeah. That is your whole goal is to touch things.
Yes.
So it's like, here's exhibits, please touch them. It's almost like, please do this, and everything's out in the open. And September no, we don't touch, we don't see, we don't want you standing close to anyone.
No, that's the thing. I cannot imagine how they would have done social distancing in this space, let alone they would have to have a tanker truck of hand sanitizer, standing by every day. But
but where you dropped off, it was actually we needed to take a tram. We foolishly realized that halfway through walking.
Well, that's the other thing is the tram system for Area 15, the GIT.
Yes.
Love the name, and relatively convenient. Showed up and seemingly a 5 to 10 minute long schedule, and got us where we needed to go after we finally figured out where to go.
Right. Well, maybe, and then we got picked up in a parking garage. So I'm wondering if you could park in that garage, and then you're right next to a Horror Unleashed, where we hung out in an Uber, and they dropped us off right at the Uber station, which was a trek. So depending on how you're getting there is depending on how hard it's to find, because it was kind of misleading at first, because the main, I think load 1 or box 1 or whatever, the level 1, whatever the main room was, had a giant marquee for Horror Unleashed. And we're like, oh, that must be it. Yep. And it almost seemed off though, because it was like flashy and like colorful. And we're like, well, for a themed land, Universal has typically made it a little bit more eerie and muted colors and so forth. So we realized that was the case, and we made our way over there.
What can I tell you, folks? We were newbies all the way around the barn here. But anyway, a little background before we get started here, because, again, this is the first Universal horror thing that they've done outside of the parks. And what's kind of interesting is that Universal out in Hollywood sort of started this. In 1986, they did a Halloween-themed tram tour, but it was just, okay, we're going to do this specifically around the holiday. And, ultimately it didn't get the traction that they'd hoped. I mean, in fact, what was interesting is that Universal supposedly did this because they were looking at Knott's, which had just started their Halloween haunt. And it's like, should we move into this field? And it's like, all right, it was a nice try. Anyway, if we pivot now to Orlando, Universal Studios Florida opens in June of 1990, and by the second year, they're experiencing that sort of, the kids go back to school. In September. The fall is kind of a fallow period, and so they launch a 3-night Halloween event called Fright Nights.
Okay.
And it's successful enough that, Hollywood perks up. And so the very next year, both parks on both sides of the country throw the very first Halloween Horror Nights. And obviously, has continued to grow, hugely successful. Kind of interesting in that Universal Singapore, which opens in 2011, they do a Halloween Horror Night very first year. They're like,
okay.
All right, we're going to do this. Japan, on the other hand, the park in Osaka opens in 2001. They don't do their first Halloween night, a Halloween Horror Night, to 2012, and it's only on the heels of look at all the money Singapore is making. So
was that a different culture thing? Because I mean, from what I always recall, Disney actually. And it might be the China parks, but don't they do like scary? Mickey's Not So Scary.
Yeah, well, again, Hong Kong, that's a fascinating thing that, because it was a brand new park. And, what's interesting when you talk to the guys in themed entertainment, they say, the park hadn't calcified. The effect of it was still, the notion of it's still new enough that we can try all sorts of different things. And so for Hong Kong, especially the folks in Hong Kong, it's like, this is small town America from turn of the century, which I don't know from Adam. It's like the notion of could this have a haunted hotel right off of the street? And again, the folks in Hong Kong are absolutely yes, we can certainly have a haunted hotel. They got into the horror business as well. But anyway, to get back to, so Universal has this huge success and it gets seasonal success in Hollywood and Orlando, in Osaka, in Singapore, and just the notion of, and they're good at it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of what you're known for.
Yeah.
I mean, before I kind of fell into the Universal bubble, it was one of those things you talk about Universal and you're like, well, we're talking about it around Halloween time. It's like, have you seen the Halloween Horror Nights? And, and they branded themselves well for that. It's,
And again, this is, it is especially once Comcast bought NBC Universal, the notion of let's try new things. And so we heard in January of 2023 they were going to do their very first Halloween horror. And this is the thing, crazy ambitious. It's going to be away from both of the motherships. It's not in Orlando. It's not in Hollywood. It's Vegas, baby. But again, that's a smart choice.
especially in 2023.
There we go. Lots of tourists, lots of conventions in town, and so what they announced is they were going to build 110,000 square foot facility, again adjacent to the Area 15. In fact, it was going to be Zone 2 of the Zone 1 had opened again in 2020. But it was going to be Halloween Horror Nights in a box. And all right, here's where the show gets interesting, folks, is that I've been lucky enough to go to Halloween Horror Nights on both coasts multiple times. Whereas when we went last night, this was Eric's very first time at a Halloween horror event. And in fact, we took his poor son Hunter, we basically made walk in front of us, all of the houses, for all of the jump scare folks to get out.
Yeah. And I thought bringing him along would be, he's he's not scared of anything. Like he's not scared of heights. He does all the rides. He does all the things. He's kind of like our test dummy. Like do this first and tell us what level. Is it a Eric level, which I'm pretty okay with most things. Lauren level, Laney and hundreds and or miles. And he was kind of more terrified than I thought he would be. And it is a masterful like mind game they play with you with just the immersion right off the get-go. It's very dark and eerie and you're not really sure what to expect. So yeah, I was kind of nervous going in and I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this because it's part of the job. You know, I just wasn't necessarily excited to do this. I don't like jump scares. I'm not a horror movie guy per se, but I'm like, we're going to do this and because I need to experience, we're going to do a podcast. I need to experience and why not? But yeah, this was my first time. I've never witnessed, I've walked through some scare zones at some regional theme parks and that's about as close as I got.
Okay. And well, let's talk about Arrival. Okay. Again, we finally got there. Finally found.
We found it.
Found it. And again, it's the gimmick is you come up on a warehouse like building.
Yeah.
You know, with the Universal Horror Unleashed name on the outside and sort of a discreet door leading in. But beyond that, there's nothing.
No windows, no doors. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for the quote. And, you know, you then, you know, they finally opened it up. So we begin the queue and did they check us in at that point? I mean, I know they checked to see if we had the tickets. They did in fact, they gave us a thing for a photo.
Oh, they wanted photos. Yeah. That was the first thing. And then they were clever. They were like, all right, we're taking this just in case somebody comes up missing. So we have a good photo to do find your bodies or you know, search crew out there. So yeah, they took us and then we went through the metal scanner just like you would.
Yeah, at your standard theme park.
And for us, everybody, this was kind of odd. This was different. Everyone had a QR code. So I had it on my phone and each house you would have to scan the QR code. So you had to get a QR code to get in. And they let you in. That's your normal ticket, but you had to almost keep your phone out, which was a little inconvenient for each house. And I think that's just because you can buy different tickets, which we were looking at. So for those aware, there's a unlimited tickets, there's a general admission, and then there's now a Frady Cat one, which you can jump in. I think it was like $29, and you could literally just do everything but the houses. So you could walk around, you can drink at the bars and so forth. And I think in our case, we had just a general admission, which I believe that means we could do the houses once. Maybe I'm not sure if it was an unlimited house or unlimited tickets to go, but yeah, we were able to witness all of them. But yeah, they get you in just like a normal theme park, and it was pretty seamless. I don't know about you. There was a line for bags. There was a line for just, you know, if you have stuff in your pockets, just hold it up over your head. They didn't make you take your shoes off or anything.
Now, I will say this, folks, that when we arrived, I mean, we were there right at opening, and that was what was kind of interesting is that, you know, everything wasn't up and running. In fact, you know, for example, we had to walk around a bit. You know, we were initially going to go straight into the Universal Horror, or Universal Monsters maze, and they apologized. We were still getting set up, and but I guess we need to talk about the area outside of Universal Monsters. In fact, I've got the official NBC Universal page over here. That area was called Dead Storage.
Okay.
All right, and here's the official description. Echoing the grandiosity of Universal's earliest horror productions, Dead Storage will envelop guests in a shadow-filled sanctuary of forgotten set pieces and eerie relics that have been reclaimed by night-dwelling creatures, so vampires, a werewolf in mid-transformation, and others that will emerge without warning. Now, we again, when we entered, this was kind of a blank space. I mean, wonderful theming, but when we circled back later during the night, they're like, oh my God, it was like Monster Central.
Oh yeah, there was vampires rappelling from stage to stage. There was a gentleman sitting on like a throne, very eerily dark in the back. That I looked at him, I'm like, is that a statue? And then he moved his head towards, and I'm like, oh, that was pretty eerie. And what, a vampire hunter with like a crossbow? A very tall gentleman, like 7 foot, big, burly. I don't know what he was, but he was walking around some queen vampire that had a throne. It would have been what, a scare zone? I mean, like in a sense.
I don't, I mean, in the classic Universal Halloween Horror Night sense, I mean, not not necessarily. I mean, by the way, that's the other thing I guess we should stress is the rules from Halloween Horror Night do apply to Universal Horror Unleashed. The monsters are never, the performers are never allowed to touch you. They can enter your space, and some of them are quite skilled.
Very good at that.
But I guess that was the thing. When we entered, this was kind of a blank canvas. When we were getting ready to leave, there had to be, between the people who were, again, as you mentioned, sort of flying through the air overhead, and I want to say they were 5, 6, 7 people
minimum. There was some mantis guy that showed up. I mean, and that is just in the front and like the entrance. I mean, because it seemed like that each house was blocked off in each corner. I would say. And there were definitely set pieces. So this was the front, and it was right next to the merchandise where you would exit, actually. So there was a little bit more light here than in some. But as you walked by, there were other set pieces. There were, weird, creepy clowns, weird dolls. I think there was a point where there was someone up on a giant spin wheel with somebody throwing axes and so forth. So it was very well decorated all throughout this area. So it wasn't just like, here's a box, here's 4 rooms you go in. Everything was decorated, and I don't know. I imagine there's probably Easter eggs from past houses because they do that really well at Universal.
They do. They assume you are
the diehard that's been at 30 of them could be like, oh, I remember that from that house, or I remember that from that house. So I think that's one thing I would love to be able to experience, but maybe a diehard can kind of find that. But very well done. I don't know if they wanted you to touch the props, but they were definitely there to touch in that area.
All right, folks. Well, we entered, and it took us a while to find a house that was open. And but that was the thing. It's like, the Universal, classic Monsters Maze isn't open. But tell you what, you can go, you can go on over to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and then they, so let's start by throwing you in the deep end. All right, and tell you what, when we get back from this ad break, we'll talk about our first experience in their first house of the night. But first, this
refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Protein is now at Starbucks, and it's never tasted so good. You can add protein cold foam to your favorite drink or try one of our new protein lattes or matcha. Try it today at Starbucks.
And we're back. Okay, so again, Eric and I are talking about our very first visit to the Universal Horror Unleashed experience in Vegas at Area 15, and we were just talking about the kind team members inside the building were like, well, the Universal Monsters isn't open, but you can go over to Texas Chainsaw. And I look, as somebody who's been to multiple Halloween Horror, they have done Texas Chainsaw before, and it's one of those things where it's a little intense. So
I don't think my wife would have liked it.
No, they delivered the goods. So let's talk about, you've never done a Universal Level 1 before.
No. So this was the catch. And the funny thing is, my son actually was looking up online to see what the scariest houses were. And it's funny that they actually, the way we did it was the most scary to the least scary from the general perspective.
Really?
So Texas Chainsaw we just thrown right in the deep end. And I did not know what to expect when you walk through. So everything was well themed and and I've always heard theming details, attention to details, really good. But I was scared to death that somebody was going to pop out. I'm just like on edge. And it's funny how you start going through and you kind of, I slowed my brain down, which I typically don't do. Normally I'd rush through things. I'm slowly, and I'm creeping around like it's a Scooby-Doo cartoon, looking for any which way. And then you start kind of noticing as time goes by, all right, there's a window here, there's a door. Which one of those should I look at? Which one should I be expecting the boo or so forth? Once I figured that out, which was probably about 3 or 4 rooms in, I was way better to take it all in. Up until that point, I was on edge and very scared. And it's funny that they have this masterful, it is beautiful that you're scared just enough that you'll continue to do it, but not so scared that you won't go to the next house.
Yep.
And I don't know how they mastered that, because like if it's too scary, I said, Jim, I want to do classic monsters first, because if I don't like it, then I'm not doing the others. And at least I got to do one.
Okay.
But it was so cool that they got you to the point where it is just that fine line of I'm walking through this and I'm not jolly, laughing, happy. I'm terrified just enough. But it was enjoyable.
Oh,
and
well,
that is so crazy. And I didn't think that could be a feeling.
No, and that's a hard Venn diagram to pull
How'd they do it?
Okay. Now, something interesting I want to share with Universal Halloween Horror Night veterans. And face it, when you do these in Orlando, in Hollywood, particularly at the height of the season, I mean, you're in a conga line of people. I mean, you move through the house, it's body to body. You're still having the same experience that Eric described, but at the same time, you're in a sea of humanity. On the other hand, what's fascinating about what they did at Universal Horror Unleashed is that there was active, deliberate pulsing. In fact, what was interesting is that, like, for example, when we entered Texas Chainsaw Massacre, I want to say again, fairly even early in the evening, not a whole lot of people in the building, but there was a couple in front of us, and they let them enter the maze, and then cast member chatted with us, but at the same time was totally monitoring her phone.
Absolutely.
And Eric eventually noticed that what was it? They had a stopwatch.
They had a stopwatch, and I think you even timed it out. It was around 90 seconds.
90
for
seconds.
Some,
yeah. They wanted you to have some distance between the group in front of her. They wanted this to be a genuinely intimate, terrifying. And
it was. There were very few times. I mean, we walked through 4 houses, and I think we caught up to one family, maybe 2, which was great. And I can see why, because if you're walking through, and this is like a normal queue for a ride, the first person in the line is going to get the jump scare. The guy in behind is going to see it, so it's not going to be effective. So you kind of want to walk through at your own pace, and they've timed it out that most people probably take up to 90 seconds to get through where there's maybe a 2 or 3 room gap, right? And that's probably good for the performers as well, because at the end of the day, it was very interesting to see that, in my opinion, these were like human animatronics, right? Because, you watch an animatronic and they set their thing, they reset, they go back and so forth. And it was funny to kind of see, all right, this person pops out of the room, scares you and does their line, and then they go right back. And then in 30 seconds, whatever, they're going to have to do it again, which you mentioned something super, super interesting, which was based off of why they don't lose their voice.
Oh, yeah. Well, I want to thank the nice people at the Universal PR team who have been kind enough over the years to invite me down to these events and take me behind the scenes. And, well, the very things that Eric was describing here, I mean, in the themed entertainment world, they're called boo holes. I mean, the notion of inside of a maze, you set up in fact, ideally you set up a space where a performer has choices as to where am I coming out, when am I, how am I going after the people in the maze. But at the same time, what Universal has learned since, dear Lord, the first of these was 91. So what is that, 35 years?
I think they're going on 30 some years.
Yeah, all right. But they learned that, the poor performer, if they screamed all night at people, they'd blow out their voice. And so what's fascinating is that typically in the boo hole, there is, for lack of a better term, a wah-wah pedal, it's something that they can hit with their foot that has a pre-recorded piece of audio that, it's the scream, the noise that it's supposed to make. And so they physically do the scare, but they hit the scream button with their foot. And, and that way they protect their voice. They can keep their energy up, the whole night.
And they can time it perfectly, too.
There we go.
Because I think what would happen if a lesser thing, it would just be on a loop. And then they would have to, it would just be a loop where it just goes and goes. And the performer would have to just do the thing. That's the difference with an animatronic, right? It doesn't really matter. But for us, you definitely saw where there were 3 instances of a window. And they almost could pick which person they wanted to scare, right? And they also can pick when they hit the button to come out and do it, which is genius, timing it, which I didn't anticipate that, right? Going into this never watching anything, only knowing of Halloween Horror Nights from news. This was it was highly immersive and very impressive.
Yep.
And certainly the houses themselves were even more impressive with their theming. And I can't compare, you can, to how they are with temporary settings.
No, I mean, it was consistent. I mean, with the quality, I mean, that's the thing. I was talking with your son Hunter about this. And, for example, there's a 15-month-long process to each Halloween Horror Night. So, for example, right now, yes, they are, deep in build on the 2026 version of Halloween Horror Nights, especially down in Orlando. But what's interesting is we are maybe a month or two out now from the very first meetings about what houses are we doing for 2027.
Right.
Which IP are we bringing into the park, which original stuff we're doing. And speaking of which, again, in the fine tradition of what they do in Hollywood and what they do in Universal, Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a loving tribute to the films of 74. But the very next maze that we did, Scarecrow the Reaping, was a brand new thing that Universal had done. It's now when I say brand new, I want to say the Reaping had been done in Orlando previously, or something similar.
Sure.
But it was a what is it? A farmhouse in the Depression in the Dust Bowl. Right?
Yes. Because I think we were talking with that as they were taking the 90 seconds to let us in, we were chatting about they had it was an old barbecue or like an old grocery store, and there was an old Coke machine and it said 10 cents on there, and we were talking about prices and stuff like that, and it was and one thing in that house was interesting because they used great use of mirrors with the corn stalks, and then there was also with the things that dangle, and this was fascinating when you were telling me, because I didn't know we did it. We talked. I think we did 2 houses, had a drink, and then we went back. But we had that conversation. You were saying the dangly things and the misdirection, and then I noticed it in the next couple houses. I'm like, oh, that is genius. So,
all right. Well, what Eric is referring to, got to figure out how to tell this story in a family friendly way. But
you just tell the kids to cover their ears for 10 seconds.
All right. No. Well, the thing is that when you enter a maze that Universal does, and you will encounter things dangling down that you have to push to the side or brush against. Tons of them. All right. And it just, in this case, it was corn stalks, it was cobwebs, it was pieces of burlap. But the term that Universal Creative uses for these, well, the acronym is SIF. The full name of what it actually is shit in face. All right. So David, you do with that what you will. All right. But yeah, I mean, and I have to say that every so often there would be a genuinely mind-blowing moment in one of the mazes. And in Scarecrow the Reaping, there's a point where you step out, you've gone through the house, and you step out into the backyard, and it the sound, the smoke in the air, the lighting, you feel like it's seconds away before the tornado arrives.
Right. Lots of fans or whatever. It was kind of impressive that they could keep that kind of in one little small spot because you weren't feeling the wind anywhere else.
Yeah. So no, it especially that one with that sort of creepy Dust Bowl feel.
It was kind of great. I really enjoyed it. I mean, so far, Texas Chainsaw was probably very terrifying, and I can't tell if it was the first house that I dealt with. This one was really interesting in terms of character use. There were pumpkin men. There were weird looking like things coming out at you at all different directions. Right from the get go, there was a guy, a giant scarecrow on stilts. That
we're literally queuing up to go in, and giant figure comes out and looms over us. So Yeah, just it was wonderful to go from one that celebrated a film that everybody knew to one that was, again, something that Universal Creative had cooked up in and of itself. And as you mentioned, they had the, and again, genius choice of creating a mirror maze, but in cornstalk. So and again, with the stuff dangling in your face.
Right. You're like, where am I? And it was very interesting how they have you questioning where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
That is genius design work, because you would walk in a room and you'll see two holes almost, and you're like, okay, where do they want me to go? And you thinking of that is enough time for the one person to pop out. It's genius. It really is. And that happened a lot, especially with mirrors. You're like, where am I walking? But we finished that house, and then we end up, we make it over. I was dying of thirst at this point in time, and we make it over to one of the bars. And there are bars kind of in general areas.
Just to be clear here, where we wound up was the Jack's Alley bar. In fact, what was kind of interesting is we came out, and again, Eric wanted to drink, and so, but we noticed that there was a woman sort of loitering in the space, and it's like, again, I'm wired wrong,
you said I'm gonna poke the bear over here. Let's see what the heck this is.
And it was Riva or Vina, I forget her name exactly, but she did
tarot card reader, right?
Yeah, and we had a very entertaining. It was entertaining for 5 minutes, but it went on for 10 minutes.
Went on a little long. But she was interesting.
She did a great job.
Very interactive. So she was reading Jim, myself, and Hunter, and I've never done a tarot reading card before, so I had no idea if this is true to life or what she did. But she had her deck, and she'd flip it over, and she'd start telling us about our lives and so forth. And it is very much like her reading us, trying to figure out like, oh, this relates to you. Oh, this asks a general question. It was pretty funny. She kept hammering on, and I guess my son is going to take over my business.
There we go. And
Jim is a knight in shining armor, and it was
again, poor judge of character. I'm just saying, folks.
But it was great, and it went a little long, and I couldn't tell if it was maybe she was stalling because the houses were coming up, and that's her job.
I think this is maybe a half hour into the place being open. The crowds are still a little light, so to be fair, she was giving us extra show.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
but what's interesting, again, the team members there were great. For example, we were sitting. We went over to the bar, and you had a Coke. Hunter had a water, and I got
Liquid Death, Jim. This is a Halloween horror night.
Oh, well, there we go. And I'm blanking the drink I got.
It was a scarecrow in there something,
right?
Well,
that was the thing. I made the decision. We just came out of the reaping. I should have the theme beverage for that house. It was sort of, apple cider plus, just with a kick. It was very flavorful. But while we were sitting there, one of the team members came over and said, "Oh, by the way, that on the other side of this, in about 10 minutes, there's going to be a show involving Jack the Clown, and be sure to get out front and see." So it was like, appreciated that, because again, that's the other thing. You didn't have a program.
No, they didn't give you anything. Yeah.
Now, was there anything? When you bought the tickets, did they give you a schedule there, or
no? I mean, truth be told, so what I did, and this is probably better for the I Want That Too show. We went and we found tickets on Groupon that were like not highly discounted, but discounted enough. So I had to go through the Groupon app, and that's where I got my QR code. So there wasn't, and that was kind of a difficult situation to find the voucher. But there was no information in terms of like brochures, because I'm one of those guys. I usually grab the brochure and take it just for to have. I don't remember seeing anything.
No.
Unless I was too scared or it was too dark. One of the two.
Eric mentioned buying tickets to this thing. And what was interesting, again, we went, I don't know if we can stress this, we went to go to Universal Horror Unleashed on Friday the 13th, folks. All right. And what was interesting is that Universal used this Friday the 13th in March to push out that they've got a new promotion going on. And in fact, through April 30th that you can save up to $50 on select tickets. I mean, for example, general admission for Nevada residents starts at just $39 and $49 for non-residents. But yeah, if you're interested in going and saving a few bucks,
good time to do it.
Good time to do it. But anyway, and back to hanging out in the Jack Alley's bar. And again, while we're sitting there, another team member comes up, and I want to say she was the warehouse manager, Margaret.
She must have came from the reaping area, right? I mean, she was talking about she got her first job in 1921 or something like that.
Yeah.
I was trying to wonder where she came from, but she was dressed like almost like Rosie the Riveter kind of
Yeah.
And bags under her eyes, veins.
Yeah, and she was carrying her manifest, and who are you?
Yeah,
and in fact kept circling back on us over the course of the evening. Pay attention, there's a show going on. But no, I mean, it's just wonderful little character interaction, and then again, on the advice of the team member, we walked around front to catch the Jack and Chance show. I guess you think it was called Stay or Slay?
Well, that was the big process, or the at least the theme is that they so Jack the Clown, as anyone listening to this probably knows, is their clown IP that is very dear and true to their theming. He has a show, and he has bandits of different misfits that grab two performers, and they're going to perform for us in a like a voice like challenge where we get to thumbs up, thumbs down, and decide if they stay or slay, and some live murdering on stage after you're doing some hula hoops and dancing. Good enough show. I thought the performing of Jack and Chance and those were very fun. The performance was okay in a sense. I think you mentioned it might have been a little too long.
It's just the interesting thing is the two performers on stage who were literally performing for their lives.
Yes.
In a town where you have a Cirque du Soleil, and all that going on, they're actually really, really good.
Yeah, they were good.
And it was high energy. I mean, anybody who's seen any of the Jack shows or the things in down in Orlando, this was of equal quality. I have to admit, Hunter got a little freaked out because Jack, I think, toward the end of the show, got fixated on me, and it was just sort of like, I'm going to kill the fat man if I get the opportunity.
Well, we were front row. They pushed us all up. We were up there close, and they did actually bring people on stage, and I made sure not to have eye contact because I'm like, I do not want. They were like, "Oh, you get to judge. You get to decide if someone's going to stay or slay," and I'm like, "Yeah, I don't need that on my moral compass right now." Like saying, "Let's kill the hula hoop man." But it was a good show, and it was probably 15 minutes, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, that, and what was interesting is right after that, we were walking through, I guess, that was the prop graveyard. In fact, you were talking.
Yeah, there was a giant Universal marquee, right?
Yeah. And, you were fascinated by how deep, how extensive the propping was.
Yeah.
But there was catwalks that ran across the top of the area. And the Jack show had literally just ended. And then suddenly there was another, pair of dancers up there doing some sort of weird Japanese anime thing.
Yeah.
But again, there was always something to look at. Right. There was always something to do. In fact, speaking of anime, your friend, your little pal.
What? I don't even know what it was. It almost looked like a mix of like the girl from The Ring. She noticed she was standing outside of The Exorcist.
She was.
And I'm walking by, and I'm wearing a Creature of the Black Lagoon shirt.
Yep.
Because of course we're gonna come up close with him later. And she points to my shirt. She comes out of nowhere. Really, I thought she was just another person because I wasn't paying much attention. And then she starts mumbling and wasn't necessarily scary, but was creepy enough. And we had a nice little conversation through her moans and me talking about the houses. And I asked her some general questions. But it was, and she must have been the one kind of manning the station there. And so each section had their walk arounds, and we got to experience them to an extent. But I think that after that that's when we went to the monsters, right?
That we did. House. And before we talk about that, we're going to do one more break, and then we'll talk about the last two houses and our overall impressions of the experience. But before we do that, there's this.
Spring starts at the Home Depot, and we are bringing the heat to your backyard this season. Fire up the flavor with our wide variety of grills for under $300, like the Next Grill 4-burner gas grill that's perfect for hosting your spring cookout. Then set the scene and turn your outdoor space into the go-to spot with patio sets for every budget. Bring it this season with grills that deliver flavor and patios that set the vibe from the Home Depot. Start your spring with low prices guaranteed at the Home Depot. Exclusions apply. See homedepot.com/price match for details.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
And we're back. Okay, so again, here's Eric and myself reviewing our experience, very first time visiting Universal Horror Unleashed, and the house that we most wanted to get into, that we were initially, shuffled away from because they were still getting ready. We finally got into the Universal Classic Monsters Maze, and in fact, what I loved about this is there was a queue outside with these oversized busts to let you know, again, to set you up with the if you weren't familiar with the monsters you're about to meet, here they are.
Right.
But at the same time, I love that moment where we're standing in the queue, we're waiting, and the woman with the crossbow walks up to Eric and gives him an assignment.
No, that's just an easy task. Just give me the head of the Wolfman.
That's it.
I was going to say, the rules and regulations says I'm not allowed to touch them, so we'll have to see how that applies. But no, great work there. And the queue, this one was, you could just, the sanctions and everything built in, you could tell this was a permanent structure.
Oh yeah.
Like it seemed to be like brick and concrete work in this area. So like, this isn't something we're originally going in. I'm like, well, if they're struggling, they can just turn one of those houses around. You start realizing that's not going to be that easy. The way they have these, and they have them fixated in a way and in order that I don't think you just swap it out. But I enjoyed this house a lot. It was scared. I did get jump scared a couple times in this house. Actually, surprisingly enough, the Phantom of the Opera had me jumped.
Did he really?
Because he comes out from, there was, you see the windows, you see doors and stuff, and you're like there, but there was a fake like wall, and he pops out of that right in my face, and I'm like, oh my goodness, so. This was a fun house, and I think we had a really fun experience because this is when we caught up at the very end with the group in front of us, which was
I felt so bad for this couple that's right in front of us. The grand finale of sorts for this attraction is you are suddenly in Dr. Frankenstein's lab. He is, the monster is there on the slab, and he throws the power switch, and the performer on the table does the whole shaking as the power runs through. And again, we've all been to these things where it's like, okay, monsters on the table, they've just brought him, they've electrified him. It's like, okay, we're good. It's like, no, all right. In this case, the performer comes off the table in a second.
Oh my goodness! And this is a 7-foot man.
Yeah,
this was a big man,
and he is right in their face. Again, he's he's playing by the rules. He's not touching them, but he is right in their space. And boy, there were 2 adult diapers being filled very quickly there.
And I'm glad we got to witness it because we got to see the whole scene, but we didn't have to deal with the jump scare.
Yeah,
which was an interesting question that I have on this is. Yeah. As a performer, and I'd love to hear from anybody that's been a performer in this, what reaction do you want? Like, because I go through and I don't want to laugh. Like, we know it's jump scares. I also don't naturally jump back and super scared, but I also don't want to just kind of casually walk by like they didn't just do their job. I'm like, how do I react here? I'm like, I'm not going to give you terrified each time. And it was interesting because I imagine if I was one, I would want to scare the socks off people every time.
Yeah. Well, in fact, I've been lucky enough to interview some, and again, the folks in Orlando who do this, it's amazing. They hold auditions in early summer, and there were a lot of folks who just literally raised their hand because they've done it 5, 10, 15 years. And so I'm coming back. All right, cool, good, glad you're coming back, and these are actual people, professionals out in the community, nurses, dentists, accountants, because again, they get to do this job for just a couple of weeks, and again, they get to perform. And what was interesting, when you talk with some of the veterans of this, they talk about the thing you most want to achieve is the double scare. That if you're in your boo hole and you get somebody at the first window, and they freak out, you're like, oh, all right, and you then quickly move to the second window because they that same person is moving along the line, and you want to try to get the second scare out of them and jump out, and it's like when you can achieve that, it's like, man, I did my job.
That's
two scares out of the same person.
Yeah, that's kind of what I would have wanted. But I thought that house was great. What did you think of the monsters?
I don't know. I thought right from the get-go. I mean, the very first thing you do is it's the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh, yeah,
and when
gargoyles?
No, that's exactly. I entered the
What?
space. It was like, first thing, gargoyle in my face. I'm like, what? What? And then suddenly there's Quasi, and you're up in the bell tower, and it's like, this is great design. But that's the thing. You got a best of the Universal monsters.
Yeah. And we got to see my boy Creature. He was, you go through there, and he popped out a couple different times.
They did. It
was a quality house. And then the last house we ended up going to was The Exorcist, and it was down for a while.
It was. Well, I think to be fair, I correct me if I'm wrong. It's the closest one to the Jack stage.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that was the reason they actually shut it down. The notion that they didn't want people pulsing in and out of that,
and hear maybe the show.
There we go.
Yeah. Well, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And so when we got there, the queue was a little longer for this house than any other. Mind you, let's reiterate, it was a Friday night, Friday the 13th. We didn't have to wait much.
No, we did not.
Which is great. Like, I'm not complaining one bit. I could see where if you had to wait, these houses would take a lot longer, but we didn't have to wait. This one, we had to wait maybe 3 or 4 families in front of us. Yeah. Hunter was terrified of this house. And I don't know the story of The Exorcist too well, but it seemed like we were in like some, is it a South American country? Or like a shop?
Okay. What's important to stress here is this is not the William Peter Blatty Exorcist from '74. This is rather the Blumhouse version. In fact, Universal had only just released this. They were so it's kind of an update of it. And I want to say again, we were in an urban shopping market that served as a queue, and then it's a story of 2 little girls who gotten sucked into the demon world, so to speak. Some amazing set pieces, especially the room where we were there where they were doing the exorcism.
Oh yeah. Wow. There was a fun jump scare there. This house had it really messed with your senses. First, we were walking through it seemed like houses and rooms, and it was very well done. Then there was this room where they used smoke and lasers, and I'm like, I don't know where the floor is. I'm like, I'm scared to walk here. It was the use of every trick in the book through these 4 houses. Was quite amazing. I mean, even in the queue, there was some type of rumbling, and there was a light that they had dangled. And I was like, and the lights flickered. I'm like, Hunter, look at that. You know, I said, something's coming near, and he was freaking out, which is great. But this house was great. I had, there were very interesting that they had all these girl performers, but they had to match them up. They all looked the same. Which was like from a casting perspective.
That's the other thing. I mean, I want to stress this. This opened in August of 2025, and we're now here, March of 2026, and this felt fully staffed. It's
oh yes,
I mean, and that was the thing when Eric and I earlier today were just discussing discussing the head count and to properly operate this between the performers out in the common areas, the performers in the houses themselves, the wait staff, the retail. This is a huge head count. I mean, this is, Universal has made an investment of size in this. And, we haven't even talked about, I mean, again, there were 2 restaurants. I mean, Rough Cuts and the Premier House. Likewise, I mean, again, we had drinks at the Jack Alley Bar, but there was also the Boiler Bar.
Yeah, which was right in the front.
Right
around. And it wrapped a very long area.
And amazing theming, I mean, they did a super job. But at the same time, it's like, wow, this takes a lot of effort. This takes a lot of people to keep up and running.
Yeah.
And I guess that's my concern, because when we left, and that's the other thing, we were here with Laura and my co-host, Eric's bride and my co-host on I Want That Too, and she was out with Lainey and Miles doing, in fact, they did the Barbie pop-up thing.
They did the Barbie pop-up. Little different. Polar opposites here.
Very much so. Very much so. But the notion was that, we've done this for 2 hours. We need to hook up with the rest of the family. So we didn't do the restaurants. We didn't do the second bar. And in fact, we actually lingered because, that space, with all of the performers as you enter had only just come to life in like the last hour or so. And, we wanted to be sure we got a full sense of that. But then we eventually drifted into the retail space. And interesting little rule about the retail for Universal Horror Unleashed is that, for example, I years ago decided as a trophy when I go to new things, I will get, something, magnets for the refrigerator. So they have a Universal Horror Unleashed, which for Vegas, which of course is on a poker chip. Of course. So it's like, all right, I'll go get one of those. And, so I buy it and I go back into the space to join back up with Hunter and Eric. And they're like, no, you can't take here, we'll give you a receipt and you turn this in and you can collect the bag before you leave. But it's interesting. You're not allowed to bring merch back into.
That is so interesting. And I'm wondering if it's just that they don't want you carrying around bags because you have to move so much of the SIF. We didn't have bags, so I don't know what their policy was while you're walking through that. The houses and the mazes. But that could be the case. But that is interesting. Or maybe they just want you to have both hands free to buy drinks.
Well, there we go. There we go. So now, just to review here again, Universal Horror Unleashed opened at 4, and the night we were there, it's going to stay open till 11. We did see, however, a note to the effect of the last group would be admitted at 9.
They're pretty much saying that this is a 2-hour event, right?
Yeah.
To me, and it sounds right. It sounds like you can experience enough within the 2 hours, and if you're a diehard, I mean, like, I'd probably go through the houses again if I wanted to, just to experience it differently. But yeah, they are almost saying by that notion of like, we're going to let you in at 9 and it closes at 11. That's basically saying this is a 2-hour experience.
Okay. And Lauren, to her credit, was investigating, all of Area 51. And she pointed out, for example, that there was a combo ticket. I mean, you could, but for example, when you entered to Meow Wolf and if you wanted to go into Mega Mart, going into Meow Wolf was free. But if you wanted to do the Mega Mart experience, it was an additional $60 admission fee. But on the other hand, if you were going to make a full day of it at Area 15, there was a $250 ticket that got
I think it had a Horror Unleashed involved.
There we go.
So there was a giant, and I mean, I could see you spending this day and treating it like a theme park and doing it from attraction to attraction to attraction. So I mean, it is comparable if you take that and say, all right, well, $250, is that enough experiences to do that?
And I think you were mentioning when we were wandering lost through the compound, we walked by John Wick, that we had with at least one listener of the show, like, you have to go. That is amazing.
Yeah, I've heard good things from that. And there was a couple other areas that they've been hammering me with ads on Facebook because they knew that I was in that area. They're like, come back, please, do this thing. So there is a cool, and I think that can tier over to the success or how long this will last. I do think they picked the right area.
They did.
I mean, Area 15 is perfect from a demographic standpoint of who's coming there and what they're expecting.
Yeah.
But who's coming there? And is this more of a Vegas problem right now that is really going to hurt or help? Horror Unleashed.
I mean, Vegas is still Vegas. I mean, for example, you were pointing when we were in the Uber going back to the hotel. Nothing's stopping Vegas from, we've got the baseball stadium that's being built right across the street here from the Luxor, and you were pointing out the giant guitar-shaped hotel for a Hard Rock that's rising up. I mean, Vegas is still spending money like the tourists will come back. But we're in this weird moment where Vegas is dealing with the effects of the gouge. You know, the notion of, so many people feel like they go to Vegas and it's endless fees. And it's just tough for Universal to have launched Horror Unleashed in this window of time when, to be honest, a lot of tourists aren't coming to America for a variety of reasons.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And I mean, I think, from my perspective, I think the pricing was right. I mean, I think we paid $50 around that for a ticket.
Okay.
So if that, but I would dare say that, like, all right, this is a great experience that you have. I didn't, I guess if you're going to go there and buy tons and tons of drinks and so forth, that this could be a pricey deal for you. But I felt for what the immersion you got, the experience you got, they didn't force you around. I think the crowd was right. I was not complaining about waiting in line at all, which is normal with a themed experience. It's like, oh, I did it, but I had to wait forever. I was like, no, and you could go back and do the things. I thought it was right. For me, I think that, I might be spoiled now because I'm going to go down to Orlando and do Halloween Horror Nights and be like, I can't do all the houses. Oh no, you make me wait here. But I will tell you, even sleeping on it, I'm like, that was a really fun experience. And I literally didn't think I would like it. I thought, I was like, I'm going to do it for the show. We're so close to do it. Like, I need to experience. I can't be on an Epic podcast or a Universal podcast without doing Halloween Horror Nights. And I don't have to like it. Nobody says I have to like it. But I am now like, oh yeah, I would definitely go down and do Halloween Horror Nights.
Cool.
Because once I realized they can't touch me, I was like, as long as they can't touch me, I'm all right. I can put myself a little glass bubble. But overall, Jim, what was your thoughts? I mean, do you think this exists in the future? Do you think the Chicago is a success?
Well, no, Eric is, of course, referring to the second one of these that Universal announced, January of 2023, and supposed to open. I'm sorry. They announced it in June of 2025, and it's supposed to open in 2027, and in the old Trib building.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see what that one is like, because this was custom built. I mean, there wasn't a warehouse here. They created an old warehouse. Where that one, they're going into a pre-existing space. But overall, I think, I was just impressed, having been to Halloween Horror Nights at Hollywood and Orlando. It was a very smart reinvention of the best of those two events in, again, 110 square, foot, building, or 110,000 square foot building. But same level, quality of performers, whether it was the dancers or the folks we were interacting with. Amazing theming.
Yeah. Great technology used, a lot of gags, like lots of the stuff, that misdirection, beautiful artwork and craftsmanships on everything. Yeah. I mean, the detail was very, very immersive.
Well, I guess having now seen it, I really do want this to succeed, if only to have an excuse to return to Area 15. Because that's the thing, we walked away after 2 and 3 hours, and it's like, I got to get back here. I mean, just alone for the robots,
such a cool space. So I mean, hopefully the Vegas can get their act together, drop some of the fees, or at least we can figure out how to get more people. Because I think it will be a huge, huge, huge success. It's going to be one of those things. I'm in Vegas. Oh, I'm a themed entertainment fan. I'm going to go do this.
No, absolutely.
You'll make your way there to do it.
No, I mean, trust me, folks, there's a reason that themed entertainment professionals, when they go over to 51, that's why they blither when you ask them about it. It's so hard to describe. It is so much of the future of what's coming for themed entertainment. You got to get there. Got to check it out. And again, Universal Horror Unleashed is a fun part of the Area 15 experience. So anyway, long story short, Eric and I really enjoyed our first taste of this, and we will circle back on it if it's here.
Hopefully, all positive. Yes, they're expanding or something.
That's what we want to hear. In fact, that I really want to reach out to the folks at Universal Creative and see if we can talk with some of the folks about how this came up out of the ground and more to the point, the challenges that they're facing in Chicago.
Sure.
So, but anyway, on that note, folks, that's going to do it for this week's edition of the Epic Universal Podcast. Want to thank you for listening, and we will get back to our normal shows, if you can call them normal, shortly. But for now, again, on behalf of Ms. Hersey, thank you for listening, and we will be back soon.